Okay, here we go. It is Thursday, January 16th. We'll preview the AFC matchups in the divisional round this weekend. We have multiple head coach rumors to cover. We have our first big-ish trade in the NBA. More updates on Pete Alonso and the Mets. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be a part of today's sports conversations. Let's go. Okay, so let's start off with our AFC divisional round previews. And the game we'll start with is the first game of the weekend. That is Texans at Chiefs. That game is going to be 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. It's the 1 seed against the 4 seed in Kansas City. And these two teams met a few weeks ago in Week 16. The Chiefs beat the Texans 27-19 in Kansas City. And look, I'm having a very hard time with this game. I know that's a little surprising. The spread in this game is Chiefs minus 8.5 at the moment. The Texans played well. They played great last weekend. They picked off Herbert 4 times. Their defense has actually been really good all year. They had the 4th best defensive passer rating in the NFL this season. Meanwhile, the Chiefs had the 16th rated offense. Are we looking at a possible upset here? It's one of those things where I'm trying not to talk myself into the Texans winning this game. But the spread is 8.5. Coincidentally, the Texans lost in the regular season just a few weeks ago by 8. Look, it's virtually impossible for me to fathom picking against the Chiefs in this game. The offense has obviously struggled this year. I think for them, the key is to unlock Travis Kelce. He is the difference maker for them. And for the Texans, there is zero pressure here. They were able to get this far without their 2 top receivers, Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. They can go into Kansas City and be very relaxed about executing their game plan. As of today, I don't know what to think. This is an exercise. When I do these previews, it's an exercise for me to run through my thoughts. The funny thing about all these matchups, as I've been looking into them, is so many of them have valid reasons to pick the upsets. You'll see that. I already kind of teased that I love both underdogs in the NFC games. I didn't think going into creating this preview for the Texans-Chiefs that I was going to think so heavily about taking the Texans here. I'm at a 95% chance that I'm going to take at least Texans plus 8.5. I'll give my final pick tomorrow. But a little tease for that. I just think in the playoffs, defenses show up. There's more pressure for offenses to execute in the playoffs than there is for defenses to execute. Now, is Patrick Mahomes one of the greatest playoff quarterbacks ever already? Yes. Yes, he is. Am I going to pick against Patrick Mahomes to win this game? I don't think I can. He's never lost at this stage of the playoffs. Think about that for a second. But on paper, look at the matchups. It just doesn't seem so promising, or as promising as I initially thought for the Chiefs. I thought my gut had told me that the Chiefs were going to run away with this thing, that this was going to be a blowout. Texans didn't stand a chance. But then you look into it a little deeper, and the Chiefs might be in a little bit of trouble. Okay, let's move on. The next game that we'll cover is the last game of the weekend. And that is the Ravens at the Bills. That game's 6:30 Sunday night on CBS. This is the 2 seed against the 3 seed. It's in Buffalo. And for me, not just because I'm a Bills fan, but this is the game of the week. Lamar versus Josh Allen. For all the marbles. The two, what has turned into now, only in the last 2 weeks, the big debate about who will be the MVP. Obviously, the Ravens were in the AFC Championship game last year. The last time the Bills were in the AFC Championship game, it was 2020. People forget about that, by the way. The Bills have 3 straight divisional round exits. Chiefs twice, Bengals once in those divisional round losses. But now, for in terms of this game, the Ravens were the best rated offense in football this year. Bills were 9th. Neither team has been all that great defensively in the regular season. The Ravens ranked 15th in defensive passer rating. The Bills were 18th. Frankly, I do not see an avenue where the Bills win this game. I think that this game is going to be a barn burner. The only saving grace for me for Buffalo is that Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard looked really good against the run last week against Denver. But the last time these two teams met, the Ravens beat the Bills 35-10 back in week 4. In that game, Derrick Henry lit it up. He had 24 carries for 199 yards. Scored a rushing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown. And Lamar also had a rushing touchdown and 54 yards rushing. The Bills are ranked 12th in opponents' total rushing yards. They're the 10th worst team in opposing rushing yards per carry. All that being said, though, the thing for the Bills, and I just kind of mentioned it, that with Matt Milano back and Terrell Bernard back, they looked good against the run. Guess who were not active in week 4, both out with injury? Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard, their 2 best linebackers. You know who also wasn't injured? Wasn't active? Teron Johnson, their best cornerback. So they should be better around this time. This is not going to be a 35-10 game. But the script for the Ravens is clearly there. Run the ball. Feed Derrick Henry. Use Lamar in the run game, especially early on. Then expose the lackluster Buffalo secondary after you already torched them with the run game. And that's why I can't see the Bills winning this game. There is such a clear avenue for the Ravens to take. There's such a clear script. Now you think to yourself, can Sean McDermott counteract that? He knows exactly what the Ravens are going to throw at him. Is he going to be able to figure out a way to limit the run game, to shut down Derrick Henry, to shut down Lamar in the run game? It's questionable about whether Zay Flowers is going to play this weekend. But Lamar is having the best passer season of his career. So it's not just stop the run, force Lamar to throw the ball, and then you're good. They are going to have to be great in all facets of defense. I'm not concerned about the offense. I think that they're going to have a fine time offensively. Remember, this game's in Buffalo. The last one was in Baltimore. And by the way, the Ravens are -1 in this game. They're considered favorites right now. I'm not giving some sort of novelty take. Although maybe Vegas is trying to push me towards taking the Ravens with the -1 line. I'm not so sure about that. Again, final picks will be revealed tomorrow on Friday's show. Okay. Let's move on. I feel like every show these days we're covering NFL coaching rumors. It's that time of year. We'll cover 2 today, because today's no different. We got word yesterday that Robert Saleh will interview for the Cowboys position. Ian Rappaport tweeted, the Cowboys have interest in and are expected to interview former Jets coach Robert Saleh for the vacant head coach position, source said, would be their first known request. This is a coach who was fired 2 months ago during the regular season. That's not so common in today's NFL. How is he seriously getting looks? Do I need to pull up the Jets team defense rankings here? They were 20 and 36 while he was there. He is no more than a defensive coordinator. He has shown he cannot lead a team. He clearly cannot lead an offense on top of his defenses. It's not like he had bad teams. He had Aaron Rodgers, for crying out loud. One of the greatest to ever do it. I'm sorry, but he's not going to have more success with the Cowboys than he did with the Jets. Nor the Jaguars, for that matter, who have already interviewed him. Look, his defenses were great when he was with the Jets. Don't get me wrong. The thing is, the offense was in the 20th percentile in yards when he was the head coach of the Jets, and then 17th percentile in points. So you're going to tell me, here's a guy whose leadership gets questioned. He was getting run over by Aaron Rodgers, running the team essentially. Had a great defense for a lot of his time in New York. But the offense stunk. You need to be able to play both. You need to be able to figure it out, both sides of the ball, whether you're going to run the offense or not, which he clearly wasn't going to, but he couldn't pick two offensive coordinators. They were both disasters. Matt LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett were horrible. He picked two bad offensive coordinators. Why is that going to change if he's the coach of the Dallas Cowboys? Does that make any sense to anybody? Am I crazy here? When I heard the rumor that the 49ers were interested in bringing him back as the defensive coordinator, I said, go do it. Go finish out your career as a defensive coordinator. You were not made to be a head coach. He obviously cannot lead. I'm questioning his leadership ability. He is unable. And so the circus that is the Dallas Cowboys continues. And I saw reports that he's expected to be very seriously considered. He's a top contender for the job. You're telling me he'll have more success than Mike McCarthy? No way. There is no way. He is a better option in today's game than Mike McCarthy. There's no way. Zero chance. And speaking of Mike McCarthy, we've obviously spoken a lot about him. And yesterday we had the first team confirmed to have interviewed him. And that was the Chicago Bears. We spoke yesterday about how his regular season and playoff success is similar to that of Mike Tomlin. He's made it a bunch of times. He's won a little more than Tomlin has in the playoffs, and he's won a Super Bowl. If we're thinking about what the Bears need right now, this matches exactly what can be a successful head coach for them. Matt Nagy and Matt Eberflus, the last two head coaches, both Matts. They both presented way too much inexperience. With Caleb going into his second season, they desperately need stability. I think this is a great fit for McCarthy. He obviously has experience in the division. He has experience with high-profile quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott. And so with the Bears, he can come into what, frankly, is a solid roster and try to cook with it. I think this would be a great hire for them. Okay, and the last NFL story we have today is Quinn Ewers declared for the draft. So the Texas quarterback is officially going to enter the NFL draft. He posted on X. Part of the post, these past 3 years have been some of the best years I could have imagined. I'm truly thankful for the opportunity to play football in my home state at the best university in the world. With prayer and careful consideration, I'm officially declaring for the NFL draft. Okay. And so now the picture got a little clearer over the last week about what this quarterback draft class is going to look like. Remember, Carson Beck took back what he initially had said that he would be declaring for the draft. He took that back. He ended up going to the transfer portal and transferring to Miami. And now we have Ewers, people weren't sure about, but he enters the draft. And so scouts have Ewers ranging from the 2nd to 4th round. In his 3 years with Texas, he went 27-9. He led Texas to 2 straight college football playoff semifinals. He's had multiple injuries during his time in Texas. He profiles to me as a guy who should be sitting behind an established quarterback and learning. If he's thrusted into a starting role, he will fail. He needs to learn how to be consistent. This past season with Texas, it was a ton of inconsistency. Ups and downs. For example, it would be a bad idea for the Steelers to draft him. They're in a position where he will be one of the top quarterbacks on the board when it comes to them. And if they want to draft a quarterback, they will likely be considering Quinn Ewers. That would be a horrible idea. I'll throw out one idea I have. You can tell me what you think. I think a perfect match for him would be with the Rams. Draft him to sit behind Matthew Stafford to learn how to consistently be good the way the Rams have been under Sean McVay and with Matthew Stafford. And before that with Jared Goff. That's the kind of situation I want to see Ewers in. That's the kind of situation he should want to put himself in. He is not the kind of quarterback that can just go into a franchise and start winning games for them. At least at this moment, it's not. He needs to sit behind an established quarterback the way Jordan Love needed to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. He needs to learn consistency. He needs to learn how to consistently go out there and perform at a normal level. I talk about performing at normal levels. Perform in a way where the headlines are not being made about you. You're doing your job. You don't have to be the flashiest quarterback, but you're doing your job. He needs to learn how to do his job. Who does that better, by the way, than Matthew Stafford? We're never talking about how high he is, how low he is. But look, the Rams are now in the divisional round. They beat a 14-win team. That's the kind of situation Quinn Ewers wants to put himself in. One where he can learn from someone like that. Okay. Let's move on to the NBA. So, the trade deadline is a few weeks away. A couple weeks ago, we saw that Dennis Schroeder move. But this kind of feels like the first... I don't know why. I don't really associate that move with the trade deadline. But with February 6th is the trade deadline. And this is kind of like the first move that I considered as part of the trade deadline. That's Nick Richards. He was traded to the Suns from the Hornets. The Suns reportedly acquired Richards from the Hornets in exchange for Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks. The Suns are a half a game out of a playoff spot at the moment. They have struggled at the center position. Yusuf Nurkic was recently benched, and now Nick Richards is their solution. The Suns are in win-now mode. Their window is not going to stay open forever. Kevin Durant's not getting any younger. He's 36. And you gave up so much to acquire him. And I find it funny, Brooklyn was unable to make it work with Kyrie and KD. And now the Suns, barring some sort of miraculous turnaround, won't be able to get it done this season. And there's no reason to believe they're going to figure it out anytime soon. And so if they don't turn it around here, some are thinking, and I'm one of them, maybe it's time to trade KD. Maybe it's time to cut your losses with the amount that you gave up to initially get him. Trade him and maybe center your team in a different way. Maybe you speed up the rebuild. You have so many good pieces. Devin Booker. So many good pieces. And so, but clearly this iteration is not working. And so maybe it's time to blow it up, or at least just trade KD. See what you can get back. And try to get back into this playoff race, or figure out if you're going to move on from Kevin Durant and this era of Phoenix Suns basketball. Okay, let's move on to hockey. So yesterday, Tristan Jary was released by the Penguins. So this was a shocking move. Well, not so shocking based on how he's been playing, but he's been their goalie for the last 5 years. And not just that, but he's owed $18 million over the next 3 seasons, and for the NHL, that's a lot of money. In the last 2 games he played for the Penguins, he faced only 34 shots and gave up 6 goals. That is very bad. Look, this team has just not been the same the last couple of years. Malkin and Crosby are getting older. They're only 4 games out of a wild card spot. So seemingly this move is just trying to wake up the team, give them a little bit of a boost. Wake up call. Let's see if they can improve from here. But the East is jam-packed, and it's very there's a lot of teams within striking distance of a playoff spot. And so maybe this is a letter to the team. Hey guys, wake up. We haven't been so great the last couple of years. Let's turn it around here. Okay. The last thing we'll talk about today is we got an update in the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. And I say sweepstakes, it's really not. There is no sweepstakes. It is one of the, to me, oddest free agency experiences I have ever seen in Major League Baseball. Here's a guy who turned down a 7-year, $158 million extension 2 years ago. He was going to bet on himself. He then switches his representation to be represented by the scary Scott Boras. He's a player, he's entering his age 30 season, but he hit 35 home runs last year. Hit 40 the year before. He's one of the most prolific home run hitters in baseball. And in today's game, we value home runs. That being said, and I have a tweet from November 17th basically saying the Mets are going to get Pete Alonso at their price. They're not going to give in to what his demands. They're more than willing to see him walk. And I said that because David Stearns is the kind of executive who doesn't get emotional. He makes his forecasts for players and he sticks to his beliefs about what they're worth. It's not a money thing. It's not about, well, we're the Mets, we're Steve Cohen, we're just going to give him whatever he wants. That doesn't make any sense. Because then every time you show any sort of interest in a player, they're going to use you for leverage, whether they want to play for the Mets or not. And so yesterday it was reported that the Mets are looking for resolution soon. And I was actually kind of surprised by this. I thought that the Mets would hold out and hold out for a long time. I wasn't going to be shocked if this went into even March. They're the only team vying for Pete Alonso. Scott Boras has barely been able to manufacture fake interested teams. We heard reports last week about the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. There's been nothing since then about those two teams. We have not heard about a team in weeks interested in Pete besides the Mets. And last Friday it was reported that he was going to come down on years. He initially wanted a 7-year deal, and now Scott Boras' camp was leaking that he'd be willing to sign a 3-year deal with opt-outs. And now David Stearns is basically saying, we're not playing your games. Here's our offer. We need a resolution soon because we need to figure out what team we're bringing, what players are going to come with us to spring training. There is no reason, I've said this, David Stearns is putting on a masterclass here. There is no reason for them to bet against themselves. I've said it throughout the entire offseason. The worst thing that happened to Pete was all these first basemen signed for so little money. Christian Walker signed a 3-year contract. He's a little older than Pete. He's had great numbers, though. And it's now for Pete. What's he supposed to do? First basemen just are not valued in the same way they used to be. You're not getting guys like Prince Fielder 10 years ago got a 9-year contract. That doesn't happen anymore. Freddie Freeman got a big contract, but Freddie Freeman, to me, I don't even know. I don't know if he still would. He's obviously performed to that contract, and anybody who wants to tell me, well, look at Freddie Freeman, he aged fine. Yeah, I guess. I think Pete has much worse numbers defensively than Freddie Freeman. I get a lot of flack for bringing up the defensive numbers for a first baseman. I get that. It's still important. And there are people telling me, so the other report yesterday was that the Mets have also been talking to the Blue Jays about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. First of all, I find it funny that David Stearns is leaking that information. So he's not going to play with Scott Boras. If Scott Boras is going to leak information, David Stearns can play that game too. I will stick to my original stance that there is no situation where the Mets will ever be out on Pete Alonso until he's signed with a different team or he's signed with them. I think there is a world where they could have both Pete Alonso and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. By the way, look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s numbers. He's essentially Pete Alonso 4 years younger. I'm not super into Vlad. I think that if I've been arguing that Pete Alonso won't age well, then the argument is probably there that Vladdy also will not age well. But that being said, there's a world where I can see the Mets signing Pete Alonso to a 3-year deal. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a free agent next year. They bring in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on a 9-year deal, let's say. Just how it's going to go. I'm just saying what he's projected to go. And seemingly the Mets are interested in him. I don't necessarily agree that they should sign him. That's a different story. But I could see a world where they sign Pete Alonso this offseason, then they sign Vladdy next offseason, one DHs, one's the first baseman, and that's it, and then call it a day. But I think that we're coming to a head here. We are getting close to a resolution for Pete Alonso, and soon we will know where he will be playing this coming season. Okay, that's a show. Tomorrow I'll give NFC divisional round previews and final picks. This is the Early Game Podcast. Have a fantastic day.